What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. On today's video review, we are going to be talking about The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. Tells the story of, well, Sabrina. It is her 16th birthday comes near. She has to choose between the witch world of her family and the human world of her friends. Now, just a side note, I am a fan of the 90s version. I grew up watching that, so I tried to go into watching this show with just a clear mindset, and I didn't want to compare the two too much until maybe after I finished the series. And then I went back and watched the first 2 episodes of the 90s sitcom version just to kind of compare and see how they different in the contrast of the show. Also, another side note is that this show was actually back in 2017 was picked up and developed for CW, but it seems Netflix picked up the rights. And what I did read is that this is set in the same universe as the Rivendell CW show. So if you do watch Rivendell, it's a lot of the same elements as far as the look of it and a lot of the color schemes. It's very closely related to that show in more ways than one.
Town of Greendale, where it always feels like Halloween. There lived a girl who was half witch, half mortal, who, on her 16th birthday, would have to choose between 2 worlds, the witch world of her family and the human world of her friends.
Now, with the 90s version being more of a sitcom-driven TV series, this one takes the complete opposite in a whole lot of ways. And I think that is good. It's kind of refreshing to watch this one. And when it gets to the dark elements, it does them very, very well. This show is rated 14, but I think it's highly recommended that you would probably be maybe 16, 17 when watching this. There's not a whole lot of blood, but there are some graphic scenes. There are some autopsy scenes, there's some demons, there's a whole lot of spookiness in this TV series that's actually really, really good. And I have to give them props on the portrayal of Satan himself. He's sprinkled throughout the show. They talk about him, they praise him a lot throughout the show, and it's actually kind of off-putting and funny in ways to hear them say,
like, oh, praise the dark one.
Delta, not that it's anyone's business, but no.
They say that quite a lot. And when they do show the beast, I haven't seen any portrayal like that in probably ever in movies that are dealing with Satanism and cults. You kind of want to see more of him. That's the only downfall, I think, to his character, is they don't show him enough. But when they do, it is pretty frightening. And in this version, they do have Salem, but they also introduce us to a new character who is Cousin Ambrose.
And what time will we be spellcasting?
Midnight-ish?
The witching hour? Ooh, spooky.
Anytime he popped up and had dialogue with anybody, I really dug his character. I wish we got more of him, or at least maybe 1 or 2 more episodes dealing with a lot of his story arc. I would have loved that a little bit more so than Sabrina's story arc. The story really closely follows like the 90s sitcom as far as Sabrina living in this world and becoming a witch, but they just kind of start the series off like she already knows she's a witch. Kind of good that they skipped that portion of the story. And Aunt Hilda, I also thought was a great character as opposed to Aunt Zelda. I'll get to that in the other section. This one, she's very sweet and she's very subtle in ways.
I was gonna cry. I just wish your mom and dad were here to see this, to see you.
They also do a lot of really cool camera tricks. The witches are kind of doing magic spells, or when they're kind of looking or in the woods. There's a slight blurriness that approaches pretty much every single shot that they're in, as well as the music throughout this show is really telling in ways. You got to listen to a lot of the tunes that are being played and contrast to what is going on in the story. So I found that aspect pretty cool. Also, the look of this show is really crisp, and it looks like it's almost shot to be a film. I appreciate that quality that it brought in, as well as the sharpness and the colors in the show.
Are you willing to forsake the path of light and follow the path of light?
I can't do this.
You must.
Did you notice I did kind of leave somebody out in the good section, and that was Sabrina herself. I really didn't find her too compelling throughout this show. I didn't really follow her character. She does a lot of things that puts other people in danger, and she makes a lot of stupid mistakes throughout this show. Being the fact that she's our main character, I do like 2 story arcs that they do with her, but one story arc is about the book, and you think there's supposed to be a follow-up to that later on. It doesn't have that rewarding moment that you're kind of waiting for throughout this whole series. Harvey, I dug his character a bit more than the 90s one, which is he's kind of just the doofus in that one. In this one, he has a little bit more story arc to his character. Her other 2 friends are just kind of just disposable, and you see early on where they introduce some things with them, and you know where this is going in the season 2 of this. So it's not really surprising. As well as they do have Salem the cat, who's a fan favorite from the 90s version.
Morning, Salem.
Maybe for you, I'm having a bad fur day.
Down and up and down and up.
I hate my life!
But in this version,
Such a pretty kitty.
it's pointless. There's a few scenes where he does help Sabrina or he saves her, but overall, since he doesn't talk, and I'm just gonna go ahead and spoil that, if you're looking for him to talk at all in this series, he does not talk. In fact, he's actually not in it very much. He's only in a few episodes, and then there's a point where you don't even see him mentioned at all for 2 episodes. Everybody else uses the familiar, which is what they call these characters who, like Salem, who's basically like a protector and a sworn person to their master. It's not quite like we see other characters who have their familiar around and they talk to them and have more relationship with them than Sabrina with Salem. I would have loved for him to talk. I understand, I guess it would have been more comedic, which brings me to another point about this show is that it could have used more comedic elements. I think if they would have started off with it being funny and then edge into it getting more serious and darker as the episodes went from maybe to 5 to 6 to 7 all the way up to 10 being like stuff is like way crazy, it would have made the show overall better in my opinion. Mood and the tone throughout the show is very off-putting at times. Certain story arcs go through and you think this is going to go somewhere and then they don't. Episode 10, they just kind of bring something out of nowhere even though they say it was in plain sight. They just kind of bring this force out of nowhere and it doesn't contrast with what we kind of had in the beginning of the show and where we thought Sabrina was going to go with that story arc. Aunt Zelda as well, I didn't really care for her character. I know she's supposed to be the responsible, the stern one.
Postpone it?
Oh, dear.
Sabrina, you cannot postpone your 16th birthday, especially not when it falls on the eclipsing of a blood moon, which only occurs once every 66 years.
I think that Sabrina's 2 friends, the one girl looks like the kid from Stranger Things and the other girl looks like the younger girl in the Wrinkle in Time movie. That's all I kept thinking throughout this series, how they look like those other characters. Yeah, if you're a fan of the 90s version, you're gonna find this interesting at some points, but you're going to be missing out on a lot of stuff that they brought in the 90s version. If you're a fan of Riverdale, I think you're really going to like this TV series overall. While I felt like the dark stuff in this show was really, really great. It was very horrifying. When you see the beast, it is something to behold. And some of the episodes are really, really cool. Amberose, the cousin Amberose, he's a really great character, and I really dug Aunt Helda a lot. But the show is supposed to follow Sabrina, and I really didn't care too much for her character overall. And some of the episodes felt like they were just okay, and some of the story arcs in here were kind of all over the place. But for the chilling adventures of Sabrina, I'm going to give it a 6.5 out of 10. I'll be really interested to see how season 2 does, more into the world of witches and magic and warlocks, and a bit more of that stuff sprinkled in here, and a bit more magic in season 2, hopefully. But that has been it for my review on the chilling adventures of Sabrina. If you have seen it, what did you think overall? Leave it down in the comment section. Leave this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I will catch you guys on another video very, very soon. I am out of here. Zombie Chris. Peace out.